Some of those same critics that you suggest, I imagine, would have us redeploy tens of thousands of U.S. troops.
But isn't that kind of a straw man? You often say that.
It's not a straw man. Let me finish what I'm saying. It is entirely possible for us to deploy 200 or 300,000 U.S. troops, and we would much more rapidly drive back ISIL. But what would then happen is eventually we would leave. And what we've seen historically is that if we don't have inside of Iraq or inside of Syria or inside of Afghanistan both the capacity and the will of people to fight for themselves, then any gains that are made eventually dissipate.
All right, joining us now, folks, Richard Perle, fellow at the American Enterprise Institute, former chairman of the Pentagon's Defense Policy Board, and former Assistant Secretary of Defense. Always good to talk to you, sir. You know, his analogy there, I mean, is she right? Is it not a straw man that he keeps bringing up? He's presenting this false choice of sorts?
Yes, of course it is. The idea that the only alternatives are to do essentially nothing or bring in 300,000 Americans is an absurd way of putting it, and it's really an excuse for not facing up to the fact that he has no strategy. He's never had a strategy for dealing with ISIS or ISIL, and he doesn't have one today.
All right, let's talk about ISIS or ISIL and the horrific video. This man, when he commented on it, had no emotion. The same with, I keep saying this, the same with the rabbis in the synagogue in Jerusalem, the same with the beheadings of Americans, of Japanese, doesn't matter. No emotion, called them an organization, didn't even mention them by name. And this man was a member. Am I wrong, Richard? Was this man, shouldn't it have been personal to Obama? I mean, because the man was a member of our coalition, a fighter pilot?
Well, you would think that he would be much more involved emotionally, because these are among the most horrific scenes that have been put on display, and the fact that they're put on display just makes it worse than the event itself in some ways. Look, he's defensive because he has no clear policy. It's ironic that he talks about the lessons of what happens when you leave a place, since he's the one who found the exit and pushed us through it prematurely, reducing our presence to the point where we had little or no influence over the governments who then came under attack. I'm afraid he doesn't begin to understand how serious this ISIS threat is. Because horrible as we see what they're doing, around the world there are people who are inspired by ISIS. And as those numbers grow, and they are growing, we are going to face, and our friends and allies are going to face, the threat of this kind of horrific violence in one country after another.
What is Jordan doing the right thing in killing those two people and now increasing their bombing of ISIS? And can they enlist other neighbors of theirs, maybe including Israel? And can they make a huge mark against ISIS?
Well, no, not by themselves. They can't. I understand why they're doing what they're doing, and one of the people they executed was actually potentially going to be traded
right.
To get their pilot back. But they are an example of how you can wait too long to get engaged, and they were not nearly engaged enough until circumstance forced it. And one wonders when Obama is going to experience the same realization, which is that either we take ISIS seriously and defeat it, or it is going to grow and become even more violent and even more broadly based.
You know what? We have a female hostage there, from what I understand, taken in 2013. You know, if they put her in a cage with a lion and show that video, you think that'll move Obama?
Yeah, I think it would. I think it would move him because it would so move the American people.
Yeah, well, I don't want to wish for that, certainly, and I don't wish for that, but certainly this president doesn't exhibit any emotion and doesn't talk about defeating ISIS. He talks about degrading ISIS. Anyway, Richard, always great to talk to you, sir. Thank you very, very much.
All the best.
All right, Richard Perle, ladies and gentlemen, here on the Steve Malzberg Show. And when we come back, we're going to be joined by best-selling author and former communications director for President Ronald Reagan. You may have heard of the man. Pat Buchanan will join us, and we got a lot to talk about with Pat Buchanan. We have the president's prayer breakfast speech, where he invoked the Crusades to show, I guess, how evil Christians have been, back, centuries ago, and I guess make that an excuse for Muslims today. We'll talk about that and more with him. Don't go away.